On this episode of Darkness to Light, we had a conversation with Tommy Hawksblood, author and UFO researcher. He gave us his take on hypnosis and mind control. Tommy, please tell us about yourself and your experience with mind control.
I got involved with hypnosis when I was 12, started doing hypnosis to people and groups by the time I was 14. I never went to hypnosis schooling or classes. I met with one of the most famous hypnotists, world famous hypnotist, Kreskin. I started doing hypnosis after I met him. And then I went into training with an army person who trained in the army, hypnosis, proving all the things that the hypnosis society says it doesn't do. Like you can make people do whatever you want them to do. I mean, it's programming and it's at a different level, but it's conditioning and all those words go together. But I can get into that in detail because I did it. I had everybody in my neighborhood hypnotized. I was working with groups of people. And then I actually started going into past life regression, and I started going into psychic implant removal because people have missing time, and that's usually when they get programmed, which I call it, you can call it cloning in a way, but, and then I can go into cloning if you want, because I was involved with that at different levels because I was 14 when I started getting into the UFO world in a greater way. And by the time I was 21, I was working with people that lost their children to abductions and things like that. So it's pretty deep how far that goes, how people don't even want to talk about certain aspects of that anymore. But I deal with it on a daily basis. I do a show every Tuesday with a person that's been being abducted half of her life. And they created a whole group of her children up on a ship. And she's brought up there. And she has multiple proof that most people don't have. So that's where I'm coming from on this subject. Cloning, as far as I saw an actual video of how the government clones grays. The government now has that video. My friend was arrested and they took his videos as well. So there's a lot of things going on that most people don't know how to find out about, and the average person doesn't have a clue. But I deal with missing time more so because that's how people get programmed. And to me, that's a scary word because you get programmed by your family, by the army, and by aliens. So there's three ways to get it. And I feel hypnosis is also a way to program people. People don't want to talk about it. Oh, you can't make anybody do what you don't want. I had everybody in my neighborhood doing whatever I wanted them to do, period. So when they say you can't, I mean, that's like imaginary story. If you don't know how to hypnotize a person, I wasn't taught the way they are taught in school and things like that. So I learned, now Kreskin did his own version of it. And he said it was the power of suggestion. And Hitler controlled the country by suggestion, not by like putting something in front of them and trying to hypnotize them. So there's a lot of different ways it can affect a person, or you can get a person hypnotized. And the person that I worked with in the army, the last thing I'll say, the person I worked with in the army, he was working with army people, proving that they can shoot people and do things if they're programmed to do it. But in the interim, I was teaching him magic tricks because he was working with children. And when you try to hypnotize children, it's hard because their attention span isn't too solid. So if you say just relaxing and they can't retain a thought. So if you entertain them while you hypnotize them, it's a lot easier. So we traded. He traded me certain secrets about hypnosis and things when I gave him magic tricks to do in front of children. So it was a trade-off, which I did, which was beneficial for both of us.
Tommy, through the media and what's happening right now with the coronavirus, do you think that there's any correlation between being controlled through the media and what's happening with these abductions with aliens?
Well, the original theory that I came up with is when it was created in the United States. And I just got a whole bunch of sheets on the actual breakdown of it, how it was created, how it was mixed together, and then how it was sent to China. But I got the documents on the formulas, the numbers, the coding for each aspect of the bacteria. Well, and I'm bad. I'm not like most people. I look at the opposite side of everything. Aliens are not good in my viewpoint. What they do is for their benefit, not ours. So if they release a virus here, it's for a reason. So if they brought it here, it's for a reason. And I say, number one thing, which a lot of races do need, is food. And they do abduct a lot of food from this planet. So if these people are dying, now they're not showing where they're burning these thousands of people. They're not showing anything about any of that. I mean, all these numbers, where's these funerals? Where's these burials? The funeral parlors were even closed down. They weren't even allowed to go to a funeral parlor. So they just take these bodies and somewhere dig a hole and bury them. That was supposedly going on in New York City. And I have a bunch of friends up there. Nobody knows anything about where it's going, what's happening, what they're doing with these bodies. So, I mean, it could also be part of what they do with that. Whether it's real or not, it's real in a way that it makes people sick. Now, and I could say this for a fact, one of the people I deal with is one of the highest medicine people I know on this planet. She came from California to Hawaii. When the plane landed here, 14 people were sick. This was in the beginning of December before they classified it as a virus. 12 people died. 2 people lived. She lived. She had a fever of 108. They were pronouncing her dead, and she was working on herself and healed herself, and she came out of it. And they made her stay here another 3 weeks in a hospital and everything else, but they quarantined half of the hospital. But it never went down as the virus. When she went back to California, it was breaking out everywhere then. It was suddenly everywhere. Now, Hawaii, we had the least in the United States up until a month and a half ago. They opened the beaches. The second they opened the beaches, it spread. Now, I don't think that everybody was hugging each other on the beach and getting next to each other. They were all trying to keep their distance. So that's not the actual reason how it spread. But I'm also been involved with chemtrails since the beginning of it. When Michael Murphy did his first movie, he was here in Hawaii as well. And we filmed thousands of pictures every week of chemtrails and what they were doing. And they sprayed this island incredibly high. So I think they're putting chemicals into that spray as well. I mean, it's already poisons and metals, which we don't need in our body. And whatever they can add to it is definitely adding on to the situation. But here's one thing, and I'm going to say this to everybody out there that listens or hears this. There's a real simple cure for the virus. It's called a sweat lodge. Native people create a hut. They burn heavy rocks and they bring them inside and they throw water on the rocks and it produces heavy steam. But it's about, it goes anywhere, I'd say from 115 to like almost 130 or even more degrees hot. So you can burn your lungs if you don't breathe slowly, but you have to breathe it into your lungs. It will kill the virus. The virus can't stand any temperature over 115. So the government's not going to release that because everybody can run to a steam room. You can go back to when we were a child, boil a pot of water, stick your head over it, put a towel over your head and breathe that steam in. So they don't want to release that because there is a part where they do want to change the population. And now they're mixing that in with the voting. Oh, well, Trump said it's okay. The Democrats are making these right. Everything's contradicting each other and it's all negative. So I don't even know how to pull out of it except say, look, if you know people that are getting or they think they got it, go in a sweat lodge, go in a steam room, stay in there for a half hour, make sure the temperature is as hot as it can go, and it'll destroy the virus, and then have a hot cup of tea when you're all done, and it'll flush it out of your system. So I can only say that because I don't know how much the aliens involved, how much the government's involved, but it's not good, and it's not normal, and it's not natural. That's my viewpoint. Somebody said that I have a big ego. I don't come from ego. I come from truth. Aliens cannot abduct me, period. No alien, no race can touch me. I'm protected. So, I mean, I'm not worried about that. I'm dealing with this light ship all the time. I'm waiting for them to make communication and say, you're harassing me, you're here, but why don't you come down and face me? And they still didn't. I'm not afraid of anything like that at all. The only thing I'm afraid of if the government comes in and takes me away, because then I'm defenseless. But I mean, I try not to talk about the government. I always try to talk about aliens and spirit and God and everything else, because like the UFO people now attacking the government greatly. And I said, secret programs are for a reason. We just can't keep attacking them because they had secret programs. They're 50 years old, 70 years old. They're old. They got new programs now. So who wants to talk about a program from the 50s and the 60s? I said, but they're protecting the planet. I mean, we had 3 major wars in space over the past 25 years. Nobody wants to hear it. I mean, but they did it. And they're not going to tell everybody they did it either. I mean, Russia was a part of it. China, I don't know where they are. I don't think they're working with us. Germany is as well. And I mean, we're not friends here, but in space, we did have an agreement. And when there's a war going on, Putin said it on Russian TV 6 months before Trump was elected. He said, I want Trump, and he said, Trump, I want Trump, you to come out and tell what really happened at 9/11. I want you to tell what's really going on with the aliens and UFOs. He said, we're dealing with 37 races. 2 of them want to destroy the planet. Take that or leave it. But that's what Putin said live on Russian TV. So, I mean, there's a lot of truth coming out, but you have to filter what you want to work with or deal with. And right now, all these people writing books on the government secret programs and this, I have more information about the Montauk Project and the Philadelphia experiment than most people alive today. So, I mean, I don't go into that in detail unless somebody really wants to get into that, because the UFO world do not talk about it. I mean, they flooded a city. UFOs went in and out of the reservoir for 9 months, and the Army was stationed around it. That is the biggest UFO incident in the United States, and you don't hear nobody talking about it. I mean, there's a few books about the Montauk Project, which was only partial truth. I mean, I was up there. That's when I saw my Bigfoot. That's when I saw the Hershey monkey. I mean, I was involved with so many different things at a different level. I never sat in the chair, the Montauk chair, which 2 of my friends did, which is the most dangerous thing that the government has played with. And they were importing children from all over the world. And that was a horrible thing. And I mean, I don't want to talk about that. I mean, the last person did, he's dead. So, I mean, when you talk about what the government was really doing, you open up Pandora's box. And 7 of my friends were killed. One of them's in jail, and the other one's in the nut house. So, yeah, they don't let people talk about things that are really high events. So when these people come out with these super strange stories, I say, let's get 10 people to agree on the same thing. I work with abductees since I was 16, and I listen to the stories. Certain things about being abducted, losing their children, losing their different parts, the semen and the ovaries and things like that are all common. But when they go into stories, well, they took me to this beautiful city and we had dinner. I said, what you see? I mean, when they come up with these extra things, oh, they showed us all the galaxies we're going to be on. I mean, I say, well, is it going to help us as people right now?
So, Tommy, tell us about the experience that you had when you were 14. What happened?
Well, the first one I had, let me explain how my UFO world, it's not too long, how my UFO world started. I was in the hospital having my tonsils out with my brother. And we were in cribs. They had us in these cribs. My brother was next to the window. I was on the other side of the room, and we had a child, another friend, another kid on the other side of the room. It was midnight, and the kid on the other side was talking to me, and my brother stands up in the crib to the back. He's 2 years older than me, in the back of the crib, screaming, Tommy, Tommy, Tommy. I'm 6. I jumped over the crib, ran over to the window, and there's this giant ship. I'm not saying it wasn't a mothership, but it was close to the window, so it looked like a giant ship. And I just put my hands up like this over the window and stared at it, and it just shot right back out into space. That's how it started for me. But when I was 12, the first time I ever had a friend of mine stay overnight at my house, and we were playing a game, and all of a sudden we heard noises downstairs. We were going down the stairs, and we saw a shadow in the back of the room. We ran back upstairs and got baseball bats, and we went crawling down the stairs, and that's when I saw this being with like a cat's head, and it like walked right out the door. And we went running back upstairs. My mother said, what happened? What happened? Oh, what? And she didn't believe either one of us. And she said, well, let me talk to him and let me talk to you. And she never said another word. But when we went into the room and we were trying to go to sleep, that's when we saw the ship take off. And it was probably maybe like 15, 20 minutes later. But it was, like I said, you're 12 years old. After that happened, my mother would never say a word to me about it. I said things to people, and people didn't care at that time. I mean, in 52, 62, 63, 64, 1964, people weren't too much into UFOs at the time, and it wasn't a big thing to talk about it. But also at the same time, Hudson County, New Jersey, where I live near, a ship landed there in the middle of the park in the morning. It's where I went fishing all the time. And then it just took right off. But when it took off, there's a giant project buildings there. A lot of the windows all shattered when the ship took off. And it was in the paper the next day. But after that, nobody ever mentioned it again. So all the little things that were pulling me into this were opening the doorway for me to become aware of what's going on. But that's how it was for me. I mean, I thought it was cool. I mean, I didn't think of it like as the danger to the planet, a danger to people. I mean, I was into robots all my life, and I was hoping I'd see a robot. And now we're going to see too many robots in the near future. But that's how it all started for me.
Tommy, thank you so much for being on our show. How can people get in touch with you by email or social media?
Hawksblood1, AOL.com. Hawksblood11 on Skype. If anyone wants to talk, I'd rather talk than type. But I answer all my mail. I'm up here for the night, so day or night, if anything's important, want to talk about anything, please call me, get in touch with me. I'm trying to do as much as I can publicly. I've been doing so many shows. It's hard, especially where I come from. I talk about truth that I know and I experience and have proven. I don't talk about anything else that somebody else said. I don't promote books. I don't promote anybody else's teachings or wording. When I teach about Jesus, when I talk about death and all that, it's my direct experiences. I mean, I had 5 death experiences. I spent 60 years, I was out of my 67 years, I spent about 50 years trying to leave my body and learned how to travel, working with deities, angels. So yeah, that's my forte. And I don't tell people you have to believe anything I say, but I always try to give them a technique to work with to do it for themselves.
Right.
And one thing I just
Awesome.
want to say, what you were saying is, well, she left, but I give a person a simple technique. When you're doing anything, soul has its own awareness and the mind has its own awareness. And you need to learn which one's talking in an important moment. I mean, if it's like you got to jam on your brakes or not, you have to know which voice you listen to always, because it will always save you no matter what. Soul's aware and it's always sees the past, present, and future. But being able to listen to that and know when, instead of the voice of the mind, well, don't do that, it's stupid. Or do mine always like kind of contradicts it. For me, it's always the first one, the first thought you get. Some people, it's the second one. But spend a week, do 1 week, listen to your first ideas, and then the second week, do the second one. And you'll learn right away which one's better to listen to. And it always guides you in the right direction. But it helps a lot. In a major situation where it's a life or death situation, you don't have too many seconds to decide what you're going to do. So it's a good technique, and it's an easy technique to work with to figure out what's right. But it'll help people in emergency.
Thanks a lot again, Tommy, and we'll see you again soon.